Hello, I'm Charles Kovess, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this episode of the Charles Kovess Interview Show. And my guest today is the wonderful Daniel Aaron in Hawaii. Daniel, good morning, good afternoon. It's actually noon for you. It's morning for me in Melbourne.
I'm on the precipice. Morning, afternoon. Happy to be with you. Thanks, Charles.
It's difficult. So Daniel is a black belt in judo and a pacifist. I'll tell you more about him in a moment. But welcome to this show where you discover more about yourself, where this show is about raising your self-awareness so you can live life on your terms. And I'm driven by the mantra, and have been for the last 33 years, that greatness can only be achieved through passion. So I hope today's conversation with Daniel Aaron helps you to discover what you are truly passionate about, and that you then uncover the blocks that stop you pursuing your passion. It's a great way to live life. Every morning when I wake up, because I am pursuing my passion, it is a joy to wake up. It's not a burden to wake up. So let's say hello to Daniel, who at the moment is in Hawaii, and I'm in downtown Melbourne just after the winter solstice in 2026. For those watching 20 years down the track, watching this remarkable conversation that we have. And it is 5 degrees centigrade here, and the Weather Bureau says that 5 degrees feels like 2. Anyway, so it's getting close to freezing, but there's not a cloud in the sky, there's no wind, and you're in beautiful Hawaii, which played a big part in my journey. Welcome, Daniel, who is a transformational storyteller, a spiritual teacher, a best-selling author, broadcaster, as I said, a black belt in judo and a pacifist. He's a reverend, an ordained priest, but he's not religious. And Daniel breaks hearts open and fills the cracks with light through books, live broadcasts, and a coaching practice that leaves people stronger and more beautiful at the sight of their own breaks. He's a full-time minimalist nomad, a steward of private sanctuaries, and he lives the work that he does in real time. And as the famous guru said, Daniel, the key to the future of our planet is that we all live as nomads, and that is where you nomad at me and me nomad at you. Welcome, lovely to have you here. So the thing that sticks out from all of that is black belt in judo and a pacifist. How did that work? Tell me, Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for creating me there with my own words. That was really fun to hear your expression of that and to feel that. So thank you, Charles. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you here. When I was a little boy, my brothers were into judo, and I thought that was cool. And then I grew up a little bit, and I got into public schools in the United States of America, and I was eating the standard American SAD diet. And I don't mean just the food, I mean also the belief system and the media. And so I believed that what was even cooler was being tough and macho and learning how to fight, because that's what a lot of the boys did around me. So I got into judo, 1, because I wanted to be like my brothers, 2, because I wanted to be tough and macho, and 3, because I was a fat boy, and I thought if I could get into judo, maybe I would lose weight and then I would be okay. All right. In 8th grade, I was in science class, and I was just sitting there waiting for class to start. And suddenly a swarm of boys came in, and they said, "I hear you're fighting David Grohl in the bathroom right now." Right. And yes, that David Grohl, the one who was the drummer for Nirvana and Foo Fighters. And I didn't know what to say, Charles, right? It was like 6 boys there. So I was like, yeah, sure. And then next thing I know, I'm standing across the bathroom from David and he's like ready to fight me. And then I think to myself, why would we be fighting? We live in the same neighborhood. We're friends. Didn't make any sense to me. And I backed out of the fight. I was like, nah, I'm not doing it. And it didn't even click for me then. At the time, I was just like, oh no, I'm a wimp. I didn't stand up to the fight. It took years later and a lot of yoga training for me to realize, actually, I was living the value that I hadn't consciously created, which is, in yoga terms, it's called ahimsa, right? Which means non-harming or love, right? It's the central driving force of Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., right? So for me, like, I learned judo in some ways so that I know how to fight. I know how to take care of myself. And a greater value for me is not putting more harm or violence into the world, and instead putting more love and upliftment into the world.
Wow, beautifully expressed. People who are heartbroken that you and I work with, but certainly when I work with them, I say, wow, how exciting that your heart is broken, because you can't be open-hearted unless you break it. And you can't be soft-hearted unless you batter the heart, because you can't be tender-hearted unless you belt the crap out of meat. And so in your description, you break hearts open. Just, give me a sense of your philosophy around your work. And philosophy, I've explained in, this is episode 256, I think, of the Charles Kovess Show. So, there's been a lot of words spoken, but philosophy, I love philosophy. For me, philosophy is the love of wisdom, because it comes from two Greek words, philos and sophia, love and sophia meaning wisdom. And this whole game of wisdom, I love making things as simple as possible. As Albert Einstein said, make things as simple as possible, Daniel, but no simpler. And being wise is that you make good decisions and not bad decisions. You make right decisions and not wrong decisions. And yet, what's right for me, what's wrong for me, and vice versa, and for everyone watching this show, what's the right decision? It's a wonderfully complex question. So, tell me about your philosophy in your work.
Happy to, thank you. Yeah, and you spoke that line in my own biography about living this work, right? So I'll connect that to breaking hearts open, because it could sound sadistic, right? One of the things that for years I declared on a daily basis is, I am willing to hurt in order to heal, right? And part of why I use that declaration is because I know that my greatest service to my clients and to my readers is, and this sounds crazy, so I'm gonna make it come around, it's to hurt them, right? It's to hurt people, right? And sometimes the greatest love, the truth, is not being nice, it's being real, it's being true, it's saying the hard thing, right? So the double entendre with I'm happy to hurt, well, actually, let me fix the first entendre first, which is I'm happy to hurt if, like, to say the thing that might be hurtful, if it's in service of healing, if it's what's needed in order to grow, in order to be self-aware, in order to improve one's life. The double entendre, though, is I'm also happy to hurt, right? I'm happy for me to hurt, right? And so part of my daily practice, my living it in daily life, is I hurt often. Like I go within and I look at, why did I react to that? Why was the thing that somebody said, why did that trigger me? Oh, okay, now I can trace it back. I find where in my own past I felt hurt, and oh, okay, now there's a whole bunch of sadness come up and pain. And I'm willing, not only willing, happy to feel that. I'm happy to experience that, because I know that on the other side of that is greater freedom, greater love, and greater vibrancy.
So breaking hearts open, it is painful for a lot of people. So I say that Australia and America suffer from they have an analgesic cultures. Both of our cultures are very similar, that the good life is the life that has no pain, that has no difficulty. And therefore, if you're in pain, take a drug. And this whole idea that a good life is the easy life. And I rail against that because there's absolutely no evidence, that a life with no difficulty is a life not worth living. So how did this occur? How did you get onto this very important path? Because one of the questions, I'm just the timing of the question, I'm really interested in how you became to do this work. Because for me, Hawaii was a crucial part of this work, but I'll explain that in a moment. But how did you come on this work?
And by this work, you're meaning
Work you're doing now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Well, there's a very clear before and after for that for me. As I said, I grew up on the standard American diet, which included the concept of avoiding discomfort at all costs, doing whatever was easiest in order to disassociate from the pain, right, of life. And in my mid-20s, I had an experience that changed everything for me. And part of my early upbringing also was, for me as a young philosopher, a great opposition to religion, right? My mind at that point was, religion is unconscious. People take religion just by default. It doesn't serve people. It's not intentional. And so along with that, I had a rejection of spirit, of God. Nonetheless, in my mid-20s, I had a life-shaking experience where God, which was not a word I could have even used at that point in my life. However, God whacked me upside the head with a divine 2x4, and the message was very clear, and it was, dude, there's a lot more to the world than you've been seeing. And it was bliss like I didn't even know was possible. On the flip side, it was also scary and painful because I didn't understand what was happening, right? My old life was blown up in an instant. And while I'd tasted this phenomenal new realm, this blissful zone, I didn't know how to live it on a daily basis, right? So I was in this limbo land, lost, confused. And when my feet finally came back down to the ground, what I realized is the number one most important thing for me now is to figure out this human life thing. And I got obsessed with personal and spiritual development.
Yes, it's those turning points are magnificent. The classic turning point, of course, which is why people use the butterfly as a symbol of that transformation, is turning from a caterpillar to a butterfly. And the Hawaii impact on me was similarly profound, probably profound, or certainly profound, because when I went to Hawaii in 1993, Daniel, to do a 2-week business school and personal development program with Robert Kiyosaki, I was a very successful lawyer. I was an international business lawyer, tax lawyer, and I had 4 children, and my identity was as a lawyer. And yet 2 weeks immersed in Kona on the Big Island, where the Ironman triathlon happens. And at that stage, I did my first triathlon in 1985. So 1993, I was 8 years into my triathlon career that continues to this day, 40 years later. But it was there at Kona that that I decided, no, there's a bigger game to play, that the world needs more passionate people. My view was that the more passionate people there are, the better for humanity. So, all my life I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I go, wow, this is a bigger game to play, provoking, like you on your website, which is danielaron.com. People have a look at it. It's a bigger game to play, and as you say, scary. Now, the interesting question of risk-taking comes into play, because a lot of people on this question of avoiding discomfort at all costs, I think that's a crucial word for everybody watching this, to really play with this idea of discomfort, that people are not pursuing their passion because it's uncomfortable. People are not leaving relationships that they shouldn't be in because it's uncomfortable. And so I came back from Hawaii. You had to make a promise or a commitment during the program. Do not make any life-changing decisions for 7 days after you got back to reality. And the day after I came back from Hawaii to Melbourne, I resigned from my law firm, and here we have it 33 years later. And indeed, this is in June. Now we're recording this in June 2026, and it was in June 1993. So this month, 33 years ago, that similar change happened. Now, you're now in Hawaii. What state did you grow up in?
Well, I have not yet grown up.
Very good.
However,
Thank you. That's an excellent point.
yes, in those years when society would have told me to be growing up, I was up and down the East Coast of the United States of America. I was born in the great state called Maine, which makes me a full-blooded maniac.
Very good. And then the decision to go to Hawaii. Tell me about that. Because I mean, everyone, that's bliss for everybody. Like, people say, I want to live in Hawaii. And from an Australian perspective, that's just a spectacular holiday destination for many people.
Yeah. Well, and there's a couple connections here, because you just described your beautiful Kona experience in 1993. And I love that they said 7 days, and you on day one's like, that's it. So risk, rebel, you knew, right? And 3 years prior to that, in 1990, that's when I got the clarity to drop out of my path toward becoming a lawyer. And then some years after that, I was working with a guy who is a raw food guru at the time, right? And I was working with him. We were traveling around the world, educating people on the benefits of a living food diet. And he invited me to come to Hawaii to facilitate a retreat. Now, that got extra special for me because, again, as a kid from Maine, lower middle class, I remember in those early years when I wasn't growing up, yet I was in the early stages of my life, I remember thinking, Hawaii, wow. If I could ever go to Hawaii, then I've made it, right? That was like the Beverly Hillbillies going from West Virginia to Beverly Hills. And so I still remember it so clearly when we flew into Hawaii, and the first time I got here and experiencing the jungle. I'm looking out at it right now, experiencing the jungle and the tropical fruits and the air that's just so different here than anywhere else in the world. It was magical for me, and it changed my life, that first experience. And I've been in and out of Hawaii ever since then, whatever it is, 25 years. I lived in Bali for 13 years. And again, as a kid from Maine, where, as you may know, it's uninhabitably cold, it's ridiculous. Eventually I learned, oh, that's optional. We can choose where in the world we live.
That's right. It's optional. You don't have to be in the cold over winter. And the health, the living food, I really took a note. The living food diet. I've got this balance in my mind. You know, you're a full-time minimalist nomad. As I said, that's where you nomad at me and I nomad at you. Minimalism is a very interesting process because not only does the Western world say discomfort is bad, but minimalist is bad, so that the more stuff you have, the better your life will be. So let's focus on health because this program is all about being healthy, and I provoke my audiences, Daniel, to constantly be willing to question what they're doing for great health. So give me your views on health. What's great health, and what advice would you give to people? I really want to dig into that, because part of the problem in talking about health is that you and I don't happen to have the identical bodies. I mean, your hairstyle is slightly different to mine. So just give me spend as much as you like in terms of your thinking around health that might inspire viewers to do something different or to explore something different.
Yeah, well, happy to do that. And Charles, what an incredible service you're doing as a provocateur to help people question some of their, beliefs and ideas about what's possible, what works and what doesn't work. Because that's the first key to creating anything in life, is saying, well, wait, what if the way I've been thinking isn't actually of the highest service to me? What else could I think that would be, right? What other beliefs would lead to something different? So thank you for doing that. And for me, as again, fat boy, standard American diet, the first big transformation for me was my physical self. I came from a family of academics, overweight, no exercise, and being a fat boy was not fun, right? It was so painful for me. And I wasn't fat by today's standards, not like the epidemic of obesity. However, I was fat enough that I was obsessed with how bad I looked. I was obsessed with what I should be eating and I shouldn't be eating and all of that. I had body dysmorphia. It was really like such a waste of energy and time and a generation of pain, that when I finally was able to transform my physical self, and I say finally as if there was a line, it was over many years. That was the first discovery for me of like, wait, transformation is possible. And there was a point, I remember this clearly actually, so there is a line. I remember this clearly when I was about 16 years old. I was sitting on the sofa at my father's house. We were watching a baseball game on TV, and I looked down at my leg. My leg was over the arm of the chair, and I looked at my thigh, and it was this like milky white blob of flesh. And I remember the thought in my mind, like, I can't do anything about this. It's never going to change. It's beyond me. Right? So, of course, that wasn't true. I went on, and through various practices, martial arts, yoga, nutrition, raw food, learning about beliefs, psychology, I was able to transform my body and become fit. And it's such an important key to creating anything in life, because no matter what else we have, if we don't have energy, nothing else works, right? There's that great saying that a healthy person has 1,000,000 dreams, an unhealthy person has but one.
Which is to become healthy. Which is to become healthy, I presume.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, because if we're not healthy, nothing else matters. We can have the best relationship in the world, though if we don't even have the energy to meet and make love with that person, how great is that relationship? Certainly not to its potential.
And how, a lot of people are confused about health. So this show also, I try to shine a light on this question of the sheer volume of information. Right now, the two big health topics, if you like, in terms of being fat are Ozempic and its like of drugs. So lose the easy way to lose weight. Okay, whatever you do, don't be uncomfortable losing weight. And then secondly, the longevity movement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on that, my belief, and you touched on beliefs, and that's a wonderful topic. A number of my shows deal with beliefs, but I'd be very interested if your techniques for shifting belief. I'd like to unpack that. But coming to this question of Ozempic and longevity, I believe, Daniel, at the age of 73 that I am entirely capable of working for another 52 years till I'm 125. I believe that. And that's my plan. And I'm open about that because by sharing it holds me to account to keep doing the things that have served me thus far. And I'm always looking for the next step. Right? So it's a discovery. And so in the time that you've spent on living food diet, on healthy elements, what are you observing about the discoveries that are being made about healthy practices? Whatever way you like, healthy practices, and that includes yoga. Where's your thinking around this extraordinary explosion of information?
It's extraordinary. I'm with you. And it's so cool. It's such a phenomenal era that we live in. I encourage you to, probably you'll do this anyway. In about 10 years from now, when you've been around the sun 83 times, when your physical body is 83 years old, at that point, I bet what you're going to say is, I'm now going to be contributing to the world, be productive for another 90 years. Because what we have going on now is so powerful. We are tapped into what I would say is a collective consciousness wisdom. All right, this is a bit radical. I don't know very many people.
No, we like radical here. This is a provocative show.
All right, let's go. I don't know anybody else that speaks about this, and I almost never do. So thank you for provoking me. My sense is we are coming to an inherent awareness of our capability, which is physical immortality, right? Which is that these physical structures do not need to wear out. They do not need to die. The greatest fallacy in terms of beliefs in the world, the greatest addiction in beliefs that we have to die, right? Almost everybody says, well, absolutely for sure, you're going to die. And when I hear that, I smile, and inwardly I'm like, thank you. I'll pass on that belief. You can have it if you want it, but I'm not taking that. Personally, I will evolve to the next stage of existence when I wish to, when I feel like it.
Love it. I love it. And Buckminster Fuller talks about that, in terms of that mental, physical, spiritual element. Physical immortality in your mind is possible. And so then what we believe about that, because a lot of people do believe, they say, I'm 70, I've got to slow down now. If you believe that, it's true. If and as Henry Ford said, whether you believe you do or believe you don't, you're right.
Yeah.
So I love hearing that, and I love that. So in 10 years' time, another 90 years I'll go, I'm open to that possibility. Now, why wouldn't people want to live that long? Because, in my view, they're not passionate. This is an endurance test, this thing called life.
Yeah.
I've just got to get to 80 and then kick the bucket. Now, come to beliefs. So you and I it's not going to be controversial that we agree that our beliefs impact on the way that our body functions. So if we believe we're supposed to be sick, we'll be sick. If we believe we're supposed to be healthy, we'll become healthy. How do people, give me some thoughts on changing beliefs. When you're coaching people and you've worked in depth with people as I have, and that's the beauty of helping people on their journey, that horses for courses. Certain people choose you, certain people choose me. The world definitely needs vast numbers of coaches because so many people are living lives of quiet desperation, stuck in old patterns as you were as a maniac. How do I change a belief that doesn't serve me?
Oh, it's the juiciest, most important question, really, right? And so we could talk about beliefs, and I'm with you on that. They are absolutely essential and underlying everything that we experience in life. And for me, there's a higher level way of looking at it, which is actually what creates our beliefs. And I refer to that as being, who we are being. You could say identity, right? Or if you want to go new age, you could say vibration. Yet, who we are being determines what we think, how we feel, what we say, what we do, and therefore what we have and what we experience. And in my view, beliefs comes somewhere right after being, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we take that as a premise, then the question becomes, okay, well, who I'm being, who am I being? I'm being healthy, I'm being resourceful, I'm being loving, I'm being stingy, I'm being scared, I'm being generous. What's really, really cool, and not everybody knows, is we can change who we are being. Right? We can observe it, and we can change it. And this is the phenomenal part of being human. As far as I know, non-human animals don't have this ability. So, how do we do that? It ain't rocket surgery, right? We're doing it all the time. We're creating who we are being all the time. And the easiest access point is speaking, right? And the key, as you know, 2 words, I am. And here's what's amazing. Being and language are interrelated. So our language reveals who we are being, right? And now everybody watching this and listening to this is going to be more aware and tuned in because they're going to hear other people. It's easier to smell on other people. They're going to hear other people say things like, I am happy, lucky. I'm the kind of person for whom it always works out. I am a klutz, right? And now we hear those statements and we go, oh, right, they're creating that. They're creating that state of being, right? So the language reveals who we are being. Even cooler, though, is language goes back up and creates who we are being. So if we change our language, we change who we are being. Right? Now, passion, I love that word as well. And I'm, as you might know, very passionate about this, and I could say more. I pause, though, to see if this is making sense to you. Is it Greek, Sanskrit, English? How's this coming across? What are you getting?
Very, very sensible. Keep going. I am. Keep going.
So here's what I do and what I help my clients to do. Consciously create who we are being. The way we do that, this is so radical, yet so obvious, we actually pause, think about, feel into who would I love to be, right? One way of doing that is say, well, what would I like my life to be like? What would I like to own? How would I like to feel? Okay, well, reverse engineer that. Who do I need to be in order to create that? Who's the being that's compatible with that? And what I call this is writing down, creating a manifesto. It's a supreme self manifesto, which is a state of declarations. It's a bunch of I am statements, consciously created. It's who I am when I am not in the limited human self, which is fearful, doubtful, weak, lazy. We all have that. That's part of being human. We all have access to those parts of ourselves, and we all have the ability to step away from those limited negative human aspects and rise up to our potential, to our human supreme self, our spiritual self. Right? So we write down a bunch of statements, and this is my supreme self manifesto. That's the beginning. And then I cultivate it and activate it on a daily basis. And every day I live more as it.
Excellent. The I am a genius. I am passionate. I am a wonderful human being. And the time, Daniel. So the Supreme Self Manifesto, everybody, create the tool. Now, the time for this to have impact, because, of course, not only do we live in a world of no discomfort and take away pain, analgesic society, but thirdly, we want instant results, Daniel. Hang on, I said I'm a genius yesterday, I'm not a genius today. And you articulated your journey. I was lucky. I had mentors in my life, but I was a lower middle class kid. That's a similar description to you and me, with refugee parents from Hungary. How do I know that this work is working? And what's your piece of advice as to the stickability? Because here's the problem: that most people that don't have stickability, because they go, I'm hopeless. As we, the opposite of what you're saying is the self-talk of your clients and the people that we've worked with. It's shocking to me how many people tell me how hopeless they are.
Yeah.
So how much? What's your sense? Give our audience your thoughts about. Come on, this works. It clearly works, but you have to stick at it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's phenomenal, Charles, because while we have this time crisis in the world, right, the most important commodity in the world is time. 90% of the population is saying, I don't have enough time. I'm so busy, right? And we want instant results. That's the culture that we've created at this point. Nonetheless, we have the capacity, and I do this sometimes too, to spend hours debating, what am I going to eat for dinner? Which show am I going to watch on Netflix? Right? And we could spend time on that, or scrolling through mindless stuff. And yet, the highest, most valuable investment we have is in creating self. Right? That's another way I put this supreme self practice, supreme self activation. It's creating self. So on a daily basis, I create who I am. It's how I start every day. Right? It's the most important time for me because through creating who I am, everything else changes in my life. Right? It saves me an inordinate amount of time. And I don't want anybody listening or watching this to believe me. I'm not trying to sell you on anything that this is something you should do. Will it create instant results? Maybe. Yes, maybe no. Either way, though, time is going to pass, right? And so, by investing yourself into creating yourself, and if you're going to look at it from a limited perspective, because that is how we look at time, time invested in creating self compared to time in things that don't actually pay back in any way, to me, that's a no-brainer choice. And it's not to say that movies or food or, checking social media, it's not to say those things are bad. It's just that they have a much lower payoff.
Yes, it's a lovely, complicated set of elements that make us who we are. Now, success. Do you have a favorite definition of success? If you don't, that's okay. Don't say, but I do, but I won't share it with you until. Have you got one? What does it mean?
I do.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Let's see how they compare. My favorite definition of success currently is thriving, winning at the game that is most interesting to the individual. Right. And for me, the game is, how much love can I create in the world? How much can we create freedom, love, and vibrancy? Earlier, you spoke, Charles, about living quiet lives of desperation, right? Which is the way it is for most people. I call it the cult of meh, or mediocre monotony. Like, so many people are living life going, it's okay, not bad, I'm getting by, can't complain. And I hear that and I'm like, oh man, there's so much more possible, right? That's why I call my company The Art of Vibrant Living. We have that potential, vibrant living. So, and then, Jim Rohn gave the definition of happiness as making progress toward a goal that is meaningful to you. Right? And I think that's another definition
and that's
of
very
success.
similar. And I think Jim Rohn, I had interesting links to Jim Rohn in the journey. As we know, Tony Robbins was, his journey started with Jim Rohn, really. And Earl Nightingale, I've adopted his definition from The Stranger's Secret. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal.
Beautiful.
And that can be plural. Success is the progressive realization of your worthy ideals. Similar to what Jim Rohn says, and similar, the only, so it's excellent. One of the questions, one of the issues that each one of us has to decide is, what does it mean to be successful? So the picture that we have in our minds of, hey, that's who I want to become at the end of the day. So my I am statements, who do I need to be to achieve that? The last issue I want to talk about, because we keep these to about 45 minutes. It's not a Joe Rogan show, Daniel, but you and I could talk for 3 hours quite easily. Tell me about being a pacifist. You see, because you've, in your own words, you've said, no, I'm willing to hurt people if it's going to heal them. So that's, again, but like being a black belt in judo and a pacifist. Give me your sense of what that means and why that, and you've touched on it, hey, I want to spread love on the planet, and so do I, in terms of this work. Passion comes from your soul, love comes from your soul. Fear comes from the mind, and it's love versus fear is a continuum. So tell me about being a pacifist and where that might lead for the world.
Yeah, thank you. First thing that comes, Charles, is an image, and it's an image from a film about one of my greatest heroes, Gandhi, right? And the image specifically is a point when Gandhi and his followers were beaten by the invaders, we'll just say it that way, like physically beaten, right? Being beaten. And as soon as I say that, I have a flash to an image from one of my other greatest heroes, is Martin Luther King Jr., right? And they both, and MLK Jr. in many ways got it from Gandhi, this idea of passive resistance or nonviolent resistance, right? they developed in themselves and in their followers a phenomenal strength, a courage to stand against hatred and even violence being inflicted upon them and not respond in kind, to not run away, right? And yet also not return hate for hate, right? There's this great line in one of my favorite books, the Bhagavad Gita, one of India's greatest spiritual books. And it says, return love for hate. Return love for hate. Developing the ability to return love for hate. Right? And one way of seeing that is like these protesters loving the people that are beating them, right? That is an ideal to which I aspire. And I'm a baby in my ability to do that, right? So right now, for me, it means on a daily basis, if I get triggered, if I feel reactive, if I feel upset about somebody cut me off in traffic or said something I don't like, then my job is to look at that and start in here and say, okay, I had some anger, some animosity, some againstness. Okay, let me find the root of that and create love inside myself, right? So that every day I can be a little bit more of a force of love in the world. And what does that mean for all of us? Wow, it means a whole different world. It means that for the first time ever, we could live without war. We could live without hatred. We could treat all of humanity, by which I mean all beings, with love, right? We could create a world that is free, loving, and vibrant.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I believe it's possible. I believe that one of the greatest blocks to that vision that you have is that there's not enough to go around. But the art of vibrant living would suggest that the opposite is true. There's plenty to go around. And the question for all of us is what's influencing our thoughts so that we don't live with love, but we live with hate. Or hate is actually driven by fear. And the fear is if I share love here, then I will miss out. So Daniel, I congratulate you on your journey so far. And the art of vibrant living is Daniel's work. The website is danielaron.com. The links are in the show. And I want to leave with one piece of philosophy that I teach that I learned from Buckminster Fuller. And you've heard of Buckminster Fuller, Daniel, have you? Not yet?
I have. Bucky's a hero.
Excellent. So Bucky's Dymaxion map is behind me here, and he said, when we solve all the problems of the world and when we solve problems as human beings, our reward for solving problems is not peace and happiness. Our reward for solving problems is bigger problems. And so, everybody, Daniel has described a pathway that you can solve your problems and the reward will be bigger problems. And when you embrace those bigger problems with love, then you will indeed be living in a vibrant way. And I'm sure you wish that for everybody watching this, Daniel.
100%. So beautifully said, Charles. I love what you're doing, agent provocateur, a provocateur of a greater way of living. Thank you for being such a model of that. Thank you for what you're creating with the show, and thank you for having me with you.
Thank you, Daniel. Great to have you here, and I look forward to the next 90 years with you at least.
Hallelujah. Awesome. Thank you, Charles.